General Manager and CEO of CareerNet, which is the leading career portal in Turkey. He will be sharing his experiences with us. Yusuf, please welcome.
Thank you, Burak. Just to get attention to here, I'm just going to share something that I just found out. So the major difference based on today's conference between a professional manager and an entrepreneur is a professional manager uses slides, entrepreneurs don't. So I have a few slides that I would like to share some numbers with you. I'm not the founder of CareerNet. First of all, CareerNet was founded in 1999, one of the first internet startups of Turkey. And they have actually received the first round of investment in 2000. And then in 2006, it was probably one of the first exits by the founders. The founders actually sold the company to the same investor that they got the first round, to a local VC called iLab Ventures, and they exited the company in 2006. And I joined the company in 2006 from the telecommunications sector. I spent about 6 years in the US, and then I went back home to Turkey in 2001 and worked for Turkcell for about 6 years. Can I have the slides? So while the slides are coming, I'll start sharing some numbers of CareerNet. Today, we are the leading online recruitment company of Turkey. So we are both a job board, but also a job board with providing software as a software as a service platform, both to job seekers and also to the recruiters, to the companies. As of today, we hold about 19.3 million CVs in our database. And so far, we have reached 53,000 customers. These are paying customers, companies, who are basically posting their jobs or buying subscription packages to our database, accessing our database. Currently, we have 14 offices, 2 in Istanbul, and the rest in the rest of Anatolia. We are an internet business. We provide everything on the internet. The only service that we provide that you can actually hold in your hand is a magazine that we publish every month to our customers. The rest is all on the web. But despite that, we actually have a lot of salespeople in the field serving the customers. And the main reason behind that is really the maturity of the Turkish market. Because if you compare our business to the rest of the world, especially the developed markets, most of the sales today are happening over the phone. But we still have a lot of field sales teams, especially in these different cities. There were a lot of questions about, kind of the growth, because we are a 15-year-old company, and there were a lot of questions about if we were still growing. We are still growing. We are still growing very fast, and I'll tell you a little bit about why we'll keep growing fast. During the 5 years between 2007 and 2012, we actually more than doubled the number of employees we have. We tripled the number of customers we have. We tripled the revenue, and the profitability actually quadrupled. At the moment, in terms of customer penetration, when I say customer, I'm referring to the companies who are looking for job seekers. We have a market leadership, a market leadership in which we are by far the leader in the market. These are based on independent market research that we had that was conducted. So we are reaching about 68% of the companies who are actually posting for jobs online, and the closest competition has a reach of 13%. And in terms of the job seekers, we are reaching 88% of the job seekers that are using online to look for a job, and the closest competition is reaching about 25%. Recently, we have launched our R&D center. So this is some pictures from our new development house. And what we have started doing in the last 3 years is actually we have started investing in local companies as well. So far, we have invested in two companies. One is a company called unishpool.com. It's basically a vertical targeting university students and providing them part-time jobs and internship opportunities. And the other one is another social recruitment platform called iştesosyal.com. And iştesosyal.com is a Facebook application basically in the field of social recruitment. We are also trying to incubate some ideas as well. I think it was about 1.5 years ago we met a company in Etohum in Antalya, Refer Base, and basically we actually took them under our company now, and they have launched a new service kind of similar to Skills Base with the name yetenekli. So that's another service we have launched recently. So I'd like to start with kind of market based on experiences. First of all, the market is still mature in both vehicles. A lot of side. So let me tell you a little bit about our so we make from companies, and on paper there are 2.4 million companies, and 2.4 million believe that 600,000 of those companies are in our target segment. So the companies that believe can and are eligible to host, and so far we reached 3,000 of those companies. So that's the opportunity in the market. That's what we're going after. So we're still at a high rate acquiring new customers. Of course, the of these customers are smaller and smaller, but still there's a huge upside there. True for a lot of different verticals. Economy is still growing. It's growing as rapidly as it was growing in the year 2010, 2000, like 8%, 8+% growth. So now it's more like 4%. But since what we an index, which you can see from our side is called Kariyernet index. This index gives you an idea of how many opportunities that open every month on our site. And considering that we have about 65 to 70% market share, it gives you a good idea of how the economy is doing in terms of job creation. Because as long as there are new jobs created, that means somebody is hiring, and that somebody is probably hiring because they're investing. We are seeing a great correlation between our index and the economic growth. And what I can tell you is, for example, this year had a very good start. So at the moment, in terms of our index, we're seeing about 8 to 10% growth compared to the last year's job posting numbers. And last year, for example, this number was for the whole year, it was about 4%. So there's still growth in Turkey. Mobile adoption is almost exponential. I'm sure this is also true for a lot of other internet services in Turkey. What we have experienced in the last 18 months is that after launching our mobile applications for iOS and Android, and also the mobile site, at the moment in 18 months, our traffic, the percentage of our 30% of our traffic is now coming from mobile. And also we have 30% of our job applications coming through mobile as well. And what we're seeing is that the job seeker is more engaged in the application, in the mobile application. The application per user numbers are much higher from the mobile because there is naturally more engagement for a service like ours. And we're expecting that to grow probably up to 40–45% by the end of this year. So it's growing rapidly. And finally, there were a lot of comments and remarks about this. I had some numbers, but I just want to cut short. So if you're interested in numbers, I can share them later. In the technology sector in Turkey, the talented and experienced, there's really a limitation for talented and experienced people. There are a couple of reasons for that, I think. One is not all, for example, computer engineers and electrical engineers decide to work in this field in Turkey. A good portion of them actually decide to go to other countries as well for education. In Turkey, some of you may know, but I'm just gonna, most of you would know, but there's still a university entrance examination, which basically kind of helps you identify, which engineers would be kind of the best of Turkey, because the university entrance examination by itself is basically a selection process. And if you look at the top 10 universities of Turkey, and if you're hiring the engineers coming from these schools, your bets would probably be very, very productive. And you can easily actually, talk to a lot of startups. And if you ask, the founders and, their engineering teams and, which universities they're graduated from, I bet they would be one of those top 10 or even maybe top 5 universities of Turkey. So that's all I would like to share. And if you have questions, I can take them. The question is if we are actively doing placement or headhunting for the companies. No, we don't. We are a
General Manager and CEO of
So what happens today is these companies actually get, we have a service for this, which actually links their websites, actually links our site to their websites. So the jobs that they post on our site are actually posted in their site as well, in their own site. But when an applicant actually applies to the job, the application comes to our system. So what happens is basically all the applications are managed on our platform.
Okay, thanks.
So, given the population of Turkey and your target market of essentially professionals who find jobs using a CV, the 19 million CVs in the database sounded a bit high. How do you explain that, and do you do any active curation of that database?
Sure. We don't do any. That's kind of the cumulative number of CVs. So we're not. I'm sure there are a lot of CVs out there. Within that number that are not even active at the moment. And those are the number of CVs, so it's not really the unique number of users. The unique number of users is about 14 million. So 14 million, some of the users have multiple CVs in our database. The CV number is not that actually relevant, but we kind of keep sharing it because that's a number that is being shared among the industry. The important thing here is really the active users. And in terms of the active users, in the last 12 months, we had about 3.5 million distinct users who have actually logged in to our platform. These are not the visitors, though. These are like logged in and made a change in their CV or applied to a job. Recruitment. So what happens today is these companies actually get for that, but I'll show you the numbers. 65% of the companies in Turkey are still using friends and family, not even references, to hire. That's why 500,000 plus companies are not using online. It's not because they're using newspaper or it's not they're using some other media, because they're hiring around friends and family. So that's something that needs to change, and that requires a lot of talking to customers, talking to companies. And also the new generation is actually more open to internet. I mean, you know, when we in the rural parts of Turkey, we generally sometimes wait for the next generation to, you know, pick up the business from the dad, because the dad is not open to this new technology. But you know, the youngsters are always very open to you know, getting on the internet right away. Any other questions? Okay, I'll be around, so if you have any other questions.
Ali Dağlı, we'll go with Ali Dağlı, and he's also veteran here, not veteran, but very long experience. Let's have a chat. Can I have another microphone? Yes, it's coming, hopefully. Ali, should you briefly tell about your self and what are you doing? And you have a deep experience about the startups and entrepreneurship, both in Turkey and also Silicon Valley.
That wasn't the deal. First and foremost, so glad to be always part of this and what Burak has done for the ecosystem. And I love to sit next to you and instead of talking with. Yeah. So the deal wasn't me explaining what I have done. It was more discussing and exchanging ideas. And I love the stuff that you ask. I've been here for a long time, maybe now my 15th year, went to school here, and I just had my startup, and I made all the mistakes you could imagine. I never thought I would become an investment banker, deal maker, you name it, in tech. And I took a step back and joined the bank, and I loved it so much, and I couldn't leave what I have done for the last 11 years. So working with, in growth sectors, working with outstanding people, partnering with them, and hopefully creating value, you know, doing deals. And now, compared to when I started this, it used to be more US and then more Asia. Now clients are all over the place. You know, you have Rovio touching 250 million people out of Helsinki, where you have 5 million people. Obviously, we have had some deals out of Turkey, and I think I promised you when we had the report. So I'm just a lucky guy working with good companies, I guess.
Also, you should probably share the Positron story. It is, you know, from the scratch, it is a really success story for us. But not only their success will depend their company's success, but making a deal, matchmaking them, or finding the right partner is also a key point, I think.
Key point is outsourcing. So I'm so happy because Yusuf Bey, you mentioned you either have a slide or you don't have a slide and you stand up. Now I love this. I outsourced my job to him. He's asking me questions. You know, I think Positron is a great example for us because I think the panel we had was the challenges of startups in Turkey, and we had many challenges. But I think Positron is a great example. When you create a good product, then you have eBay as a client in US. And again, it started, I had a breakfast meeting with Fırat at Americano, Vitalia, and you have an outstanding product, good team. And we had some discussions. The idea was raising money, but you had a good partner or partners that liked what you did. You know, regardless of where you are, I think Istanbul, MENA made sense. But there are many reasons why I am happy with Monetize and Positron deal, because for us, good deal is good for both sides. So I think it's a great case study for us in Turkey that you have you create a company. It's not a boss, one guy, but you know, at that point, Positron had an outstanding team. I think that's something that even Europe is challenged today. You know, they call themselves ex-CEOs. And US, there is no ex-CEO. You have this one slide that we always use. It's a team. It's CEO, COO, CMO, and everybody does what they do. It's not the boss. You know, even Steve Jobs was not a boss. He was the CEO. So I think net for me is a great case study that shows you when you go after that. It started with a passion. There is someone that lived it before me, I believe. You can explain that story, but the very first, before Said Bey, it was İş Bankası. Fatih goes to a pitch, and all the stuff that they wanted to have, he said, yeah, we have that, yeah, we have that, yeah, we have that. He had none of that. And he went back and he created that. So as a, we have this thing, yaparız abi, hallederiz abi, in Turkish, right? So that's an outstanding, I think, for us, that whole practical IQ to be able to fix things, make them happen. That's how Positron started, learned, and had more outstanding clients, grew out of that. But if Fatih and Fırat didn't grow out of them, and had Yasemin and all the others joined and had a team of 6 at the management and used that in the last maybe 18 months, I don't think we would have that deal. So again, I think there are many parts of that we can discuss, but it's a great case study to inspire the ecosystem.
By the way, today is Ali's birthday. Happy birthday, Ali.
Thank you so much.
So that's why we modify the program, get him earlier. And do you think that the Turkey is still vibrant and investable?
So Turkey is definitely vibrant. I mean, talking about vibrant, the city couldn't be more vibrant. I love to go to Turkey. Compared to 2 years ago, can I promise you again, there is another monetize coming up next year. I think there are issues we cannot ignore. I had a conversation with head of HSBC. He said, I'm a believer in Turkey, but when an investor or a buyer see a photo of your prime minister kicking someone, that's an issue. That affects. I mean, that is costly. He told me that the cost of that is $5 billion. So I think when we had the report inside, all these investors who missed on Yemek Sepeti, they all asked me, bring us stuff, bring us good investment. Today, people are watching, right? You had this 11 years of growth. You have a really stable market that everybody wanted to be in, and now it's unstable, and people are watching. YouTube was banned, so we have some issues going on. So it may make it harder for the foreseeable future to have so many deals, but I think I know that there are some deals going on, and there are discussions. It's still an exciting market. There is consumption, but it's not, I can't promise you a big deal in the next 12 months, but it's vibrant.
I mean, it is coming from you then, probably, because we have all sold the companies that were successful for the last 10 years. Yes. I think none of them has exit yet. Yes. Very few have left.
Yes.
Do you think, new companies appearing in Turkey too?
So, again, I think if you create, I have another conversation going on with a Turkish outstanding, brilliant guy, and a conversation with a company in US, and they love the product. So, first and foremost, everybody complains about, and that sometimes a company goes bankrupt, and, what could we do? We didn't get investment. The world has changed today. 10 years ago, at business schools or in my meetings, we had startup costs, right? Today, you have AWS, you don't have startup costs. Having said that, when you get to a certain point, you need money to grow it fast, right? To be in that competitive landscape. So I think, and 50% of our exits, Positron, one of those, new toy clients, they have not had investments. So that's not a sole excuse to do good things. Having said that, yes, what you say is true. In US, in a day, there is $100 million invested coming from VC, only in US. I think if we add everything we have had in Turkey, Yemek Sepeti is $44 million, I think you get to that $100 million. So again, that makes it harder, that cycle makes it slower and we have less exits. But it doesn't mean that we won't have exits. I think we have to just work hard and harder.
By the way, you can ask anytime any question. We should get the questions from you as well. Efe will be helping you with the microphone, so don't depend on my questions.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, well is entrepreneurship culture and Turkish culture as well. How do you benchmark the both culture? I mean, it was a question previously in the first session. How do you benchmark it, and what should we do to improve our internet ecosystem?
Okay, it's great. Before that, again, I want to tell you that I use Turkey fully. It helps me. I have my, that's what I'm trying to say now. For us to pick the next client, I have my nephew, Emir, Ayşe's son, Ayşe Arkuş, Emin. I have a network of team members in Turkey, outsourced. They check these apps, games. They tell me, boom, the next Clash of Clans game is going to be great, and it works. So now this ecosystem is global. And I have incredible conversations in Turkey. So I want to finish on that note. So if you find something unique, it's global. What can we do, and what I observe is, are we patient enough? That's one thing that I ask. I always say that, do we have this thing? And maybe even I have that. When something doesn't work, do we hit that table and say, I'm done with this? So are we patient enough compared to US? Because even US, it's really tough market, and you launch a game, or launch an app, and you have a bug, and you have promotion from Apple, and it's a big one. You put so much money in, but there is a bug, and people give you 1 star. I mean, this is tough. But do you go and say, I'm done with this? You don't. You keep on fighting, and we have seen this in US. It's part of the culture. It's tough. You have to keep on fighting. I think working in teams, that's for Turkey, that's for Europe, it's extremely important. And again, I think taking a step back, and since it's competitive, what to do, what not to do. What's up? What I see, I had a bunch of conversations yesterday. We have incredible ideas, but we want all of them at once. It's all these things are turning into services. Do I have the discipline to take a step back and only maybe have 2 of those and keep 80 ideas behind? We have challenges to do that because we want to do so much. US has learned that with Instagram, WhatsApp. WhatsApp is simple. WhatsApp could do so much more. WhatsApp could make it cloud-based, and then they wouldn't have 500 million users. So no friction. It's as simple as your phone number, and then all of a sudden you have 500 million users. I cannot tell you, Burak, how many conversations I have with brilliant Turkish leaders, young people that I have incredible ideas. However, they all want to say, I'm like, are you done with that app? I'm done. Are you done? Are you sure? I'm done. I'm ready to go. And this app is like a cocktail. It has so much in it. So that's another observation.
And I mean, in addition to your comment, reaching to finance, here it is easier probably than Turkey. Do you think this also it is a success factor for?
So I think number of investments, yes. It's not easy here too. I'll share with you what we see. Yes, I mean, I just mentioned in Turkey, cumulative, it's $100 million in a day in US. But what we see today is, you have to get to a point, you have to prove the product, have some traction, then you get investments. If not, everybody is so busy. I mean, I just had a reach out to a good friend of mine at a great firm. He's like, Ali, I only invest in CEOs I know, the network, or my friends who invested in it because I'm so busy. There is an issue today too when you try to raise money early on. People ask me, I want to raise money. It's not easy, so first prove that. But when you look at the number of investments in Turkey and total, yes, that's an issue.
All right. Any questions from crowd? Right. And yes, there's someone coming.
I don't know Positron. What was their business?
Positron is a mobile software business. They do kind of finance, so it's a B2B, and it's in a way, think about Salesforce for mobile. That's what I used, kind of. It's B2B and focusing on more finance, banks, e-commerce. Turkish, totally Istanbul-based company. Much colleague, it's
This is powered by
They have been acquired by Mantai.
Oh, yeah, it's SAP. They have those modules, and it's SAP. Like I use Salesforce.
Right. To sum up our chat, do you think that global companies coming from Turkey would not last 10 years or come earlier than, we expected? Global companies, global startups.
Okay.
Because one of the issue and topics that we are talking and the problem is we don't have global internet startups. Although
Yes.
there are local successful examples, lots
Yes.
of bunch of examples, we don't have a global successful story that will other entrepreneurs have motivated from their success and being another. For example, Estonia has one, Finland has one, the other countries, Denmark, even Romania,
absolutely.
Hungary, they have some of good internet companies or software technology companies which other entrepreneurs can take an example. Do you think that Turkey can also do that as a last question?
I think because of the challenges, Stockholm, Spotify today, it's a service that I love to use, came out of Stockholm. We have many more examples like that. So I think market is global. So, and again, I think people getting together and creating a company, e-commerce and all that stuff, now maybe there is more innovation because of the challenges. With people, the conversations that I have, I see 5 times more innovative startups coming out of Turkey when you compare to 2 years ago, at least early on. Mm-hmm. I think that is a good indicator of more global products coming out. So hopefully, yes.
Turkey
absolutely.
has huge population. It's an advantage and a curse. Because most of the people the internal market because it's easy to reach. For example, other countries, as a population, to start with the inner people. So the entrepreneurs look global opportunities. But in Turkey, as my experience,
that and you do it in local markets. You can your phone. There is so much consumption. You can create something for local market. Okay, speak, or you can create something for global market. Again, looking at 7 million people, more companies in public markets ways, right? Sold. It's a map, social map. So again, I think there are opportunities. I hope you and I have this conversation 3 years from today, and we have many global examples.
We will, hopefully.
Yeah. When we talk, things happen.
Yeah. Ali, thank you. Thank you very
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After today, maybe. Okay. What about the device? Okay. Okay. Let me start while waiting for the device. I also have some slides to accompany my speech. We have a totally different company from until you have heard today here. It's another business. We are in the content business, one of the biggest businesses in Turkey, in Turkish language of content. And as Barış earlier mentioned from Intel Capital, we have good things and bad things together, so I will go over it. We in Turkish we say, we sit on a real big traffic. As you will see later, we create one of the biggest internet traffics of Turkey. But monetization in Turkey especially is not that easy. In the last years, it's okay. We have been profitable in the last 5 years. Before reaching that situation, it was of course harder, but it's improving every year. So, will I have the slides? We will see. Okay, Lokman. Okay. Okay. to follow with speech. Okay. We have been also in actually we started our company about years ago. The current big product, the flagship product of our company, we started 7 years ago. So the first one real hard, but we have 6 different sport sites. One of them is the biggest, the sports.com. But we have also new projects, and recently launched 2 international versions. One in Azerbaijan, one in Germany, aiming the 3 million Turkish people communicating. So our latest projects. Okay, forget about the slides. I'm considered to be an entrepreneur, so I can go without slides. Unutalım, boş ver bırak. Okay. Really forget. Okay. Okay, let's use it that way. Okay. It just to a company. So we have actually 2 businesses right now, 2 revenue sources, I can tell. One, we have a big sports media, and we have, of course, big advertising revenue. But compared to other countries, especially US or UK, the internet advertising market in Turkey is very small. And in the beginning phase, this might be also considered as an opportunity, because we are also one of the biggest Google publishers there. And every time I talk to my Google people there, they tell me it cannot be worse than this, Ilkan. So this can be considered as an opportunity, because the unit prices, the unit advertising prices are really one of the worst 5 countries in Turkey. So it is really hard to monetize your page impressions and other traffic. Apart from our own media, we are also a content provider and service provider to many sports-related businesses in Turkey and many technology companies, including all the 3 mobile operators of Turkey. So we are the leading content provider of Turkcell and Avea right now in all their sports business. And also we provide content and services to federations like the Turkish Football Federation and sports clubs like Galatasaray, for example. We have ongoing relationships with them for many years, more than 5 years with each of them. So this also brings us new projects and new revenue streams, of course. So right now, about the figures, this includes only the web numbers. After that, I will talk also about mobile. So it has been incredible in the last years, the growth of mobile, like also Yusuf said. So only on web and only on our flagship site, we have about 6 million uniques each month, with 150 million page views. And if we add up all our other sites, so I have here the slide, so we have about 8 million uniques and 200 million web page impressions. And we have also another video site, again focusing only sports content. So we have about 10 million video streams on our video on-demand site on sporxtv.com. So the numbers are quite big, because as also the prior speaker said, we have a big community there, so 80 million people, an incredible interest in football. But of course, if you try to sell something, it's difficult. As also Barış mentioned, Digiturk can only sell 2 million subscription boxes, although football is so popular. So we also have sometimes hard times to monetize it, but the traffic is very big and growing always. And mobile, so we were of course expecting this, but we have maybe bigger numbers than Career also, because of the nature of our business. So I was also expecting that the mobile exceeds the web traffic at the end of this year, but it already happened in February. In February, we had some days with more than 50% mobile traffic. So Sporx right now has about 1.5 million sessions every day, and about 700,000 some days come from mobile only. And this quadrupled in the last 2 years, I can say. In the web, we don't have such a growth anymore. We are pretty flat in the last 2-3 years. But in mobile, the numbers grow terrific. So right now we have more than 10 million visits and 100 million mobile pages monthly only in Sporix, and we have also other sites. And the app downloads reached about 3 months ago 1 million. About half of them is active, so the numbers are really terrific. And for us, another important part is the traffic coming outside of Turkey. It's about 1/5 of the traffic comes from outside of the Turkey. Of course, since we produce only content in Turkish, these are the Turks living everywhere, including the States, but the biggest countries for us are Germany and Azerbaijan right now, and we are trying to focus, and we recently launched 2 versions of Sporix in Azerbaijan and Germany with our specific domains under sporix.de, which is the popular extension in Germany, and in Azerbaijan we have a translated version of Sporix, so idmanx, idman means sports in Azerbaijan language, so we are trying to focus on those markets right now. And the thing about Azerbaijan was a little bit different. I was also there with Burak about 1 month ago, I guess, so in Baku we had an Etohum conference. Everybody was talking Turkish. This was also new to me. So practically everybody understands 3 languages there, their own language, Turkish and Russian. So therefore, without doing anything, we had good traffic from there. We were always in the top 200, even sometimes in top 100 positions. So now we are trying to go higher in the position. So we are trying to improve our traffic there and copy our business model in Turkey there, both in advertising and also in other business partnerships. So these are the current situation. This morning I checked, so we are the 16th biggest traffic in Turkey with only our one site, sporix.com. So Facebook is, I guess, 2, Google is 1, YouTube is 3, and Sporix is on the 16th place. So some big part of our traffic comes from social, so that's also growing very high, and it also pays us back. We have about 4.5 million likes in our sports sites, and about 15 to 20% of all our traffic comes from social, and half of it is mobile. So people surfing mostly mobile on Facebook, and they click on some link and they come to our mobile site from Facebook. So it's a very big and nearly free traffic source for us, and we are trying to improve our groups. We have a specific dedicated team working on the social aspect of Sporix. So we also have a print magazine, so the numbers are of course there. Example, people are about football, but there are only 2 print magazines in Turkey, and we acquired one of them 3 years ago. Because this people really, it's very hard to convince them to something. So there are only 2 magazines. But I go to Germany. Let's say I have been raised in Germany. Crazy about magazines in Turkey. We have only 2 magazines, 2 football magazines. So that's after today, maybe. Okay. What about the device? Okay. Okay. Let me start while waiting for the device. I also have some slides to accompany my speech. We have the things we do apart from our own main business. So we are the MSN's sports partner in Turkey right now, and we have been powering one of the big club sites since 6 years. We have been working with the leading mobile operator for the last 10 years, and with the competitor, which is hard to do in Turkey, we have been working with 2 of them for the last 7 years. And we are trying to repeat right now this in Northern Cyprus and also Germany. We are trying to work with the subsidiaries there. Actually, we already started. So these are the things we did in the last couple of years. So for the future, what are we planning? Of course, our business is mostly local. So it is very hard to replicate in other countries or go completely global, because not only because of the language, but also because of the nature of the content business. So we know Turkey well, we know Turkish sports well. It is not easy to replicate everywhere, but of course Azerbaijan and Germany is in our focus right now. But mobile is very important. We will definitely be focusing on mobile to offer everything to our customers in every platform. We already did it, but we have to fight always. So, and of course, special projects and partnerships with all the sports-related industrial companies in the 3 countries. Right now, we are trying to do that. So that's all from me. So if you have questions, I can take.
We go with Umur. Umur is an entrepreneur here with a great company. 3 years old.
3 years old, yeah. It's good to be here. Hi, I'm Umur, one of the founders and the CEO at Citus Data. So we are a company right now almost evenly split, actually, exactly evenly split between San Francisco and Istanbul. Our business is one of databases, and then more specifically scaling out SQL databases for a variety of workloads. And looking at this from it's a very global problem. At SQL, for those of you, well, actually, I should ask, who's familiar with the SQL or SQL language? All right, a good 2/3 maybe. So it's basically kind of the standard, say the lingua franca of database interaction. And as such, when you say I'm going to run SQL against large data sets, it's a very well-established problem. There is, anywhere from Oracle, of course, is the king of that world, but then you got the Microsofts, the IBMs, the SAPs. You have the all kind of big IT companies as well as a bunch of startups. Now, why are we in that business? How did we kind of get in it? It goes back to three co-founders. Both of them are here, actually, down the street right now, coming from Amazon. And a lot of the problems that Amazon faced 6-7 years ago are now mainstream for a lot of companies. And the problem fundamentally is the data that I have now is a lot more than it used to be. And on a single machine, I can do a lot of things. I can use open source databases. I can use commercial products. But when I need to get the same experience, same APIs, same performance, but I'm running it now on 5 machines or 50 machines or 200 machines, structurally the problem becomes very different. So you're dealing with, your data sits in a machine in, say, Maryland, another sits in one in Washington, and then they are transacting between them. One of them fails. What happens? How do you scale out, etc. Now our journey. So we started the company in Istanbul. Both my founders, we knew each other from all 3 of us. We were at Stanford at about the same time, about 12 years ago. So it has been a while. But then we went through the YC program, which is an incubator here, Y Combinator. We were lucky to be the first company to participate in that program out of Turkey, which was a different experience in and of itself. I'm not going to talk much about it, but happy to take questions. What I want to talk about today is kind of the challenges we faced, to the extent that that's useful, looking to found and grow an international technology company. So, and in a very large and competitive market. Because in our, and in my experience, doing a startup is the same amount of work, pretty much, regardless of the size of the market. If you're running a, say, a bakkal in Istanbul, or you're running Walmart, as the founder, as someone who's really into it, you're going to spend about the same amount of time, about the same amount of effort, and you might as well go for something big. That's of course there's varying views on this, but And then how big is the market? Now we look at databases. It's about a $35 billion industry worldwide, and the SQL part of it is the vast majority, about 95%. And so we got that part of it. That was kind of the easy part. Then the question becomes, okay, can you just walk into such a market, just like 3 people or 5 or 10? Why can't Oracle build this? Why can't anyone else do it? The answer is some things have to change structurally. These are beyond your control, and something's disrupting that industry. And in our case, those are 2 mega waves, if you will. One is the cloud, which is you're able to acquire both infrastructure and software over the network, and a lot of infrastructure moving in that direction. And then 2, kind of this whole big data thing, which wasn't really a term, at least popular term, when we founded Citus Data. And in a way, everything is generating data. Anything you call smart meters, smart cars, smart refrigerators, anything. That means there's a sensor there. Chances are there is hundreds of sensors collecting data, and then of course if you're not doing anything with the data, you might as well not collect it. So then the amount of data that's being generated has outpaced the growth of silicon, which is kind of what the Silicon Valley is about, or at least was about, with companies like Intel, etc. Silicon is doubling every 2 years in performance. Data is doubling according to some estimates, like 14 months, 15 months. So you need to scale this out. You can't just say, I have more data, I'm going to get a bigger box. You have to say, I have more data, I need more boxes. And I need these boxes to behave as if they were a single system. And again, Amazon faced this problem really early on. So those 2 waves, once you're storing your data in a distributed way, the database, which is the central software component to access that data, the database is very coupled with how you store the data. Once you change the way you store data, you have to change your database. So that's what's happening now globally. And for those of you who are familiar, like there's going to be a ton of like buzzwords. There is like SQL, there is NoSQL, there's Hadoop, there is a whole ton of things. I also will start, look to stick to time. So then the question becomes, okay, so this market is being disrupted. How do you crack it? And there is like several challenges. I'll talk. I think one of the biggest lessons for us, and that's something, of course, we're going through right now, is the importance of positioning. So, when we first set out to build Citus, and then some of our capabilities, some of the numbers we've seen have been really, remarkable. Was to emphasize that. So we're saying, okay, you know what? Our vision is to be the database that people think of when they think of scaling out SQL. That vision remains the same, but we started out with that as our pitch. We said, you know what? We are the database that you're going to run SQL on. And that was a very large market. As I said, I mean, it's tens of billions of dollars. And there is a lot of people who say the same thing. And it's difficult kind of to differentiate, to say, like, I'm doing better. In reality, we were doing better in very fundamental ways. But to explain that took a lot of time. So I'd have to take your attention, not for 5 minutes, but for 45 minutes. And I have to walk you down why architecturally I'm doing the things I'm doing and why they matter. And you are likely to get it. You might not. You might have different reasons. At the end of the day, I'm a little startup. And I'm dealing with, very large companies. Now, actually, I should open a parenthesis. Right now, where we are at, we have customers in 5 different verticals. Most of them are here. And some in Turkey. In Turkey, shout out goes to Migros here for being kind of really at the forefront of adoption. But then also here we are looking at security. We're looking at this is online security, e-commerce, mobile analytics, ad tech. These are very data-heavy industries, and right now we've got other major things going on. But you are, where before especially you make your first sale, and not, and problems don't go away with that, you have a credibility question. I have a lot of data, why should I trust you? What we found out, and this took time, is you're not selling the product, you're selling the message. People, I mean, this is in enterprise software at least, in many contexts I believe, but this is what I'm familiar with the most at this point. And people have to buy your message, and then by the time they implement it, it's months down the road. These are longer sales cycles. A database is a very sticky product. Any enterprise, generally software that's on-premise is very sticky. So people, like the sales cycles are long. So, and then we changed our message from, okay, we're just doing SQL, this, really thing, but we're doing it really awesome. We changed that to, there is a new upcoming infrastructure for storing data in a low-cost way. It's called Hadoop. This is, a few years ago. And now, of course, it's, you can find it in a lot of places. Then the Citus DB architecture fit very nicely with how Hadoop works. And then, we made that point, and we announced it in one of the key events here, and got a lot of, good feedback, a lot of traction. But then within 2 or 3 months of it, everybody was saying the same thing, running SQL on Hadoop. And this is coming from a wide range of, again, you name it. You have all your big Fortune, 100 technology companies to, like smaller startups. And the signal to noise ratio is very low. So there's a lot of clutter in the marketplace, but it's difficult for you to break through that noise, especially because you don't have the marketing cloud. So I can, if I have special access to all the thought leaders, all the time, that's a different story, but that's, never the case. So then, digging a bit deeper, what we are doing actually is, it's an ambitious goal to say I'm going to run SQL. I'm going to be the database that comes to mind when I want to run SQL at scale. It's a tall order because there is a lot of engineering work that needs to get done. And then, as a starting point, we use an open source database called PostgreSQL, which is extremely powerful, extremely flexible, and has been getting a lot of traction, especially most recently over the last 3-4 years after the MySQL acquisition. And then MySQL, Postgres, you can think of them as similar products for their use case. But as Postgres gains momentum and as it already has very powerful features, we are taking an angle of, okay, Citus data is going to scale out Postgres. And for those users of Postgres, it's an immediately, it's a soundbite you can latch onto. So you can, I use Postgres, I'm going to scale this out, I'm going to use Citus. And, where we were, the keynote was delivered by Goldman Sachs. The next day, keynote was delivered by Morgan Stanley. Then Guild Group spoke there. Instagram uses it. Uber uses it. AT&T uses Juniper Network, Cisco, Apple. So it's everywhere actually. So it's not a niche product. It's actually a very mainstream product. And when you make it scale, then we're addressing a relative large market. Is it all of the 35 billion? It's not, clearly. But that's the direction, where we're headed. So we found out over time and over iteration that, especially when you're competing in a hyper-competitive environment, and even if not, it's really important to be focused with the messaging. The revenues of the company are not advertising, which is the case for Facebook, Google, even Google. Right? Of course, that by itself doesn't say, okay, I'm going to just join Citus, but there are very meaningful things with one of our users right now in the UK. They are a very large cancer research institute, and previously they're running, they have the genome, the next generation sequencing, which basically takes kind of like sequences the DNA, and then they're running queries against that to find what disease aligns with, like what types of things, what things correlate. And previously, their queries were taking 40 minutes. Now they're taking, 30 seconds. And that makes the researcher's life, now it's a different game. where you have to run a query, you go to lunch, you come back. Now you can ask a question, wait half a minute, ask your next question while the thought is fresh on your mind. So we at least like to think that we're making even just a tiny difference in the well-being of the place we live in. So, and that resonates with not everyone, but the types of people that are like us. So I think that helps with like recruiting in general, and of course that we are doing kind of challenging things, and there are not that many companies who do these type of things, especially as a startup, makes that alleviates that somehow. And of course we keep our office in Istanbul for more than one reason. A, we have our roots there. B, we have a really great engineering team there. C, we can get more people there. And then importantly, we'd like people there to relate to us, and that they work. Hopefully, if Citus Data continues on its track and is successful, then they can come back and say, okay, they can found their own companies, etc. So there is kind of, and we're investing in Turkey in that regard. There is also, I think earlier on it came up, there's government incentives that also help. It's not by itself reason enough, to stay, but it's definitely makes from a cost perspective, it's very helpful. And of course, as a startup, you always have limited resources. So there is that on the recruiting side. There's of course managing a remote team. I'm not going to get into those details. And then there was another thing I wanted to say. Oh, and then with recruiting, one of the things we found out, and this is, I guess, somewhat common knowledge, but we lived through it. I think it's especially useful in the early days of the company to keep a rather uniform culture. I think diversity helps a lot in a larger company, in even a medium-sized company. But when you're a small group taking like very quick decisions, if people have a similar culture, similar mindset, just you move quicker. So that and then that applies to engineering, applies to other things. So those were some of our like hiring lessons, if you will, in a very competitive market. And then lastly, about the sales side of things, I think I talked about messaging as being kind of very key in that process, and then two, establishing credibility into especially kind of your earlier customers when you're selling a large ticket item, which can be mission critical. So they are relying on your software to power their business. It could have bugs, it could be down, so you have to overcome those barriers. For us, the way that worked was, starting with like smaller, companies. One of our first, actually our first customer was one of our classmates from Y Combinator, and they, run their site on Citus DB. And when we started there, it was a lot smaller. Now it's in the tens of terabytes of data, and using the early wins as references, you can jump onto other verticals or other similar use cases, and then it just grows based on that. So starting out small and then using those as references to get your customers. That's perhaps always the other part is is a lot clearer now, is focusing on very kind of high touch activities. So in other words, I can't to sell my software and instill confidence in you. For me to do that, the best way is to shake hands, to when you're down, you don't place a call, you don't send an email, but I can immediately be there. Who are relatively newer companies and that they like to build new things and build it. And so, having that, we need to be experienced. And even though after YC we went back to Istanbul, we worked a bit more on initial release, a bit in and then after 1.0, and especially after the San Francisco office here. So both things are going on, and it's it's a long-term journey. We're basically looking at this as let's do this, but more like let's keep at this and things. So, any questions? Company incorporated, it's one in Delaware and one in Turkey. Delaware, the revenues of the company are not advertising. Right? Of course, that by itself doesn't it doesn't say, okay, I'm going to just join Citus, but there are very meaningful things with one of our users right now in the UK. They are a very large cancer research institute, and previously they're running they have the genome, the next generation sequencing, which basically takes kind of like sequences the DNA, and then they're running queries against that to find what disease aligns with, like what types of things, what things correlate. And previously, their queries were taking 40 minutes. Now they're taking, 30 seconds. And that makes the researcher's life, now it's a different game, where you have to run a query, you go to lunch, you come back. Now you can ask a question, wait half a minute, ask your next question while the thought is fresh on your mind. So we at least like to think that we're making even just a tiny difference in the well-being of the place we live in. So, and that resonates with not everyone, but the types of people that are like us. So I think that helps with like recruiting in general, and of course that we are doing kind of challenging things, and there are not that many companies who do these type of things, especially as a startup, makes that alleviates that somehow. And of course, we keep our office in Istanbul for more than one reason. A, we have our roots there. B, we have a really great engineering team there. C, we can get more people there. And then importantly, we'd like people there to relate to us, and that they work. Hopefully, if Citus Data continues on its track and is successful, then they can come back and say, okay, they can found their own companies, etc. So there is kind of, and we're investing in Turkey in that regard. There is also, I think earlier on it came up, there's government incentives that also help. It's not by itself reason enough, to stay, but it's definitely makes from a cost perspective, it's very helpful. And of course, as a startup, you always have limited resources. So there is that on the recruiting side. There's of course managing a remote team. I'm not going to get into those details. And then there was another thing I wanted to say. Oh, and then with recruiting, one of the things we found out, and this is, I guess, somewhat common knowledge, but we lived through it. I think it's especially useful in the early days of the company to keep a rather uniform culture. I think diversity helps a lot in a larger company, in even a medium-sized company. But when you're a small group taking like very quick decisions, if people have a similar culture, similar mindset, just you move quicker. So that and then that applies to engineering, applies to other things. So those were some of our like hiring lessons, if you will, in a very competitive market. And then lastly, about the sales side of things, I think I talked about messaging as being kind of very key in that process, and then two, establishing credibility into especially kind of your earlier customers when you're selling a large ticket item, which can be mission critical. So they are relying on your software to power their business. It could have bugs, it could be down, so you have to overcome those barriers. For us, the way that worked was, starting with like smaller, companies. One of our first, actually our first customer was one of our classmates from Y Combinator, and they, run their site on Citus DB. And when we started there, it was a lot smaller. Now it's in the tens of terabytes of data, and using the early wins as references, you can jump onto other verticals or other similar use cases, and then it just grows based on that. So starting out small and then using those as references to get to larger customers. That's perhaps obvious. The other part is that looks obvious in hindsight, but is a lot clearer in my mind right now, is focusing on very kind of high-touch activities. So in other words, I can't, to sell my software, I need to instill confidence in you. For me to do that, the best way is to shake hands, to be there. When you're down, you don't place a call, you don't send an email, but I can immediately be there. But also looking at companies who are relatively newer companies and don't have a lot of enterprise legacy, and that they like to build new things and then use kind of cool things to build it with. And so, having our focus, that meant we needed to be here in San Francisco. And so even though after YC we went back to Istanbul, we worked a bit more on our initial release, a bit as in another year. And then after releasing Citus 1.0, and then especially after 2.0, we basically opened our Istanbul office here. San Francisco office here. Yeah, so those are some just high-level things. There's a lot going on, and it's a long-term journey. We're basically looking at this as not a quick let's do this and get out of the way, but more like let's keep at this, and good things will happen. So, any questions? I'm happy to take. Say it again. Where is the company incorporated? It's two places, in one in Delaware and one in Turkey. The Delaware company owns the Turkish subsidiary. Culturally, I think stock options are not valued as much in Turkey because they're not tangible. You don't have examples of people who have, benefited from it. In our case, we treat everything as kind of the same as if it were in the States versus in Turkey. Other questions? I think we're good.
Thank you.
One more question about Y Combinator. I think you got your first customer out of there, but what else did you get from Y Combinator?
Airbnb. That would be really cool. So the biggest thing we got out of Y Combinator has been the network, and in particular, some of our classmates. You're going through the same problems at the same time, which is you want to get your first customers, you want to get your first hires, you want to get the investors, what are you going to tell them? So there's a lot of collaboration of information, which investor is good, which is bad. So you can do a lot of gossip, but also you can do a lot of valid checks. Two, even more valuable, is access to the alumni. So then, that you're a YC company doesn't mean they're going to use you. Actually, it has no, but it does mean they're going to talk to you. So they'll listen to you, they'll give you their feedback, sometimes their data, and then if your value proposition is there, they can become a customer. So I think those are the biggest things. And then finally, there's a brand value of being part of that, and it just in the absence of any other information for an outside investor. Knowing it's from YC makes it easier to fundraise.
Make the panel at last, but after the panel we will have a networking session at the terrace. You have to see the terrace. It have a great view. So after the panel we will be upstairs at the 6th floor, I think. So let me introduce you the panelists. Hasan Pehlivan from Turkish Investment and Support Agency, and he will give us about major economic situation in Turkey, and Kutlu from Sabancı University, and Etohum from BIC Angels, and let me remember who? Selçuk Atlı is. I think he is outside, and I will be the moderator. Yes. Selçuk is also a YC alumni this year. Boostable. Yes, Selçuk. It's coming. Ben de ayakta şey yapalım.
To reply with numbers. Maybe it is the last meeting and it could take some
Let's
patience of your
Lokman,
time. But
should we also get the presentation of Hasan Pehlivan to the screen? Yes.
to reply with numbers. Maybe it is the last meeting and it could take some
Let's
patience of look. I mean, I need to tell you a little bit about what we do as the agency. Our responsibility is to bring foreign investment, international investment in Turkey. So that's the day-to-day question we always get: is Turkey investable or not? When you look at Turkey, you need to look in long terms. I mean, if you see a couple of macroeconomic research, they say that to become a fully developed country in 3 decades, you need to perform very well. And Turkey has achieved the first 10 years of that. So we need to know why it has been achieved, and we need to plan for the next 10 years. So then we can find the answers of that investable or not. And I will answer this point also from the 2 points from the capital as well as the labor mixture of Turkey. Do we have the mouse?
They will change from the over there. They are looking for the clicker.
Okay.
You have it.
Correct. Thank you. That's appreciated. So here my numbers coming, so I will be feeling very comfortable with it. So Turkey has a growth story. I mean, everybody is talking about, and I will put the same. So I would like to give you some figures about that. First of all, why Turkey has grown is and as you know, the last financial crisis has happened because of the sovereign debt crisis. And second thing is countries has realized in their banking system there are problems. And when we talk about countries, we are talking about US markets, EU markets. In Turkey has fundamentally strong banking system. We learned our lessons in 2001. We had to start from scratch, and we have a very well-regulated system now. And right after that, we have decreased our debt ratio to 35% of the GDP. This is one figure, and EU average is roughly 80%, and to be an EU member, you have to be around 64% Maastricht criteria. So Turkey meets the EU criteria economical terms. Second is your fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline is very critical. And again, when we look at the EU, to be an EU membership, you need to reach roughly below 3%. And Turkey performs that. It is 1.6%. And we believe in 3 years we will have a well-balanced budget as well. And when we look at the growth perspectives, Turkey has grown over the last 10 years 5% in average. And we expect this growth performance to continue anywhere between 4 to 5%. So why we believe in that? First of all, the macro disciplines that we have mentioned. But moreover, the demographic mix we have in Turkey is very, very favorable. We have a very young workforce, around 29 years of average, and as well as stability, despite you might see the recent events, might sound unstable, but Turkey, when you compare with the 1990s, has well achieved a political stability as well. If I can change that. Main drivers of the economic growth, first, internal consumption. That's why we are seeing a lot of e-commerce sites are being successful. The second is exports. We are in a very favorable geographic area. This helped us in the last 10 years, especially after the financial crisis, because EU is decreasing, but we were able to capitalize the east part of Turkey, CIS, Middle East, and Africa. And as a result, we achieved GDP per capita is increasing. This is important. People are getting richer. And here, this is a very important slide. People are getting richer, but not only top percentile of the population. I think this is going to give the answers of today why we cannot monetize. I think because people has to become richer, they have to sustain for their basic needs, then they can go and spend their money on the other needs as well. So when we look at worldwide, this is purchasing power parity, under $1 today per day income, there are 1 billion people living worldwide. In Turkey, this number is 0. In US, there are still some people living under $1, by the way. And Turkey has bring down, this is a World Bank benchmark, basically, $4.3. It has come down from 2002, 30% number of the population. Now only a limited number to 2.3% of the population is living with the $4.3 per day income. So inequality has been also being removed. There is some still work to do. And you can see in the lower percentile, the income has increased 68%. And when you look at the top percentile, it is only 7%. So we are going in a very right direction in the Gini coefficient. As a result, people mainly, your housing and the food is your main needs. You are spending less of that and you are spending more of the other needs. And when we dig down the other needs, the people are spending mainly education and health, because when they are getting richer, people want a better healthcare service and better education. I'll go through those, but young population, this is very, very critical. And our population will age after 2030. So we are having a lot of workforce coming into the play. When we compare with Europe, 25% of the population is between 0 to 14. So there are still more young people is coming. If you compare with Germany, Spain, or Italy, there's only 14%. So we have a young population and still more young people. So we need to create jobs, but we are not in job creation as well. There's only 6 million jobs created. And after 12 years of employment, the rate from 25% to 70% from now 2014. It takes Spain number in 2009 and it has increased to 52%. Italy, it has increased to 42% from 26%. So it is able to the movement of young people. The US is 28% and Turkey is 17%. These are having favorable demographics is not enough. You need to have skilled labor force. You have a lot to do that, but please spend for education. When we compare to only roughly 9% of budget is being spent. Now we are spending 70% of the budget. And when we compare the percentage terms, it is 600% more we are spending in education. This is very, very important. And we are giving more engineers, training is important. In terms of, is Turkey enough skilled force? Yes, we do. And you can see in ICT sector, number of employment is increasing. It is in defense 54%. Of course, there is a base effect, but these are good numbers to give good flavors. So as a result, all you combined, favorable democracies, stable macroeconomy, people are getting richer, and income disequality is being resolved. Turkey is on the right path. So what we need to do is for the next 2 decades, we need to repeat this performance to be a developed economy. So if Turkey is investable, yes. And I would like to share you 2 numbers. When we look at the foreign direct investment, basically, last 2 years we are receiving roughly $13 to $14 billion. And just first quarter of this year, we thought it will go down a little bit because of an election period and also all political decisions. But first 4 months, we received $5.2 billion. Terms, what the investors are looking, not the 3 months, 4 months, 1 year, they are looking what Turkey achieve in the next decade. They are making their decisions on that perspective. We are not looking of the short-term investors buying stocks, etc., etc. But long-term investors putting, bricks and mortar and employing the people, they are buying this long-term perspective of Turkey.
Thank you. Very detailed answer. Thank you for that. And from macro perspective to Selçuk, Selçuk has experience, as far as I know, 3 startup experience. And what are the challenges you have in Turkey and here?
Sure. So I've started 3 companies, 1 in Turkey, 2 in the Bay Area. So the first company, to basically give you some context, the first company I started in Turkey back in 2011 is a company called İletken, which was a recommendation engine company. And then, so we've basically tried a lot of things, tried to be successful, had some business, but we've had some challenges kind of scaling and selling a kind of enterprise product and raising money. And then I just decided to be like, oh, this is not going to really work out. I'm just going to come to Silicon Valley and start a company here, which I did. Packed up my luggage and came out here 3 years ago. Started a company called SocialWire, raised $3 million for that. Now it's a profitable advertising company used by a lot of big retailers like Zappos and Gilt. And most recently started another advertising company that does something a little different called Boostable, which was in the most recent Y Combinator class. And last month it raised $3 million and it's basically a block away from here. So I kind of tried quite a few years in Turkey and kind of did some business, but didn't really kind of get the startup to where I kind of wanted to have. And you were very familiar with the challenges that we had at the time. And kind of, I landed in San Francisco in like 3 or 4 months. I raised funding and built up a team and do it. So I feel like the challenges in Turkey, and again, from what I hear and like from the conversations that I've been having, there's been tremendous improvements in the market. But the challenges that we've had in Turkey was mainly around venture capital and fundraising. Because for a startup ecosystem to prosper, there needs to be competition in the venture capital community. There needs to be, just like there should be great startups, there should be a lot of investors who are competing for deals so that investors and entrepreneurs have favorable terms. So we've had a few bad experiences in Turkey where like we've had some deal terms that weren't really entrepreneur friendly, too much control and all that stuff. So that was one problem. Another is, in Turkey, a lot of the companies that you can build out are kind of ones that are attacking really big markets, right? You need, like, the successful companies are ones like Marcofoni or like others where you're building more of a traditional business model that's attacking a really big market. However, in the Valley, the difference is like the market is so vast and huge that even if you build something very specialized, you can actually gain a lot of market share and like grow really fast. So, for example, one of the challenges that we've had in Turkey was the first company that I started was a recommendation engine that helped online retailers personalize shopping experiences, like very technology specialized company. So there just wasn't enough money to be made, right? So when I believe in 2011, when you look at the e-commerce numbers, I think the entire e-commerce market was equal to just a few top retailers in the United States. Like we look at like a QVC here, one of the top 10 retailers in the United States. They make $2 billion a year, right? So you like working with a retailer that's doing $2 billion a year, right? If you compare that to the Turkish market, that's like very small, but so that's why you end up having to attack really large markets. Here in the Valley, I think the good thing is that like, if you're good and if you're basically working on a really cool, unique problem, and if you're a good networker, you can kind of get around places and get access to opportunities. It's a very opportunistic place. I was very lucky. For example, I came out here in just 3 months. I met some people that really liked what I was doing, who were like very connected. It's kind of like a club. They like you, they introduce you to their friends, and they introduce you to their friends, and you're like, oh, I raise a lot of money and like build a team. That was different. The deal terms are much more favorable because mainly it's because there's much more competition. But the thing that's difficult is hiring engineers here is really difficult because you would imagine Silicon Valley, every smart engineer comes here, right? But the problem is there's a lot of startups too, right? They're all trying to hire engineers, and Google pays them $200,000 a year, and you're like, hey, I don't have that much money, but I'll give you stock that can be worth something someday. So that's a problem. So I feel like one of the benefits to building a company in Turkey or having an engineering office over there is that there's some really talented engineers who are actually sometimes even better than the ones that we have here. And you can actually hire them, right? So that's one of the benefits I think that Turkey has. Like, we got some really young and smart people. Let me see. Another difficulty in the Valley is basically just because there's all these opportunities for startups, there's a lot of competition, right? So if you're working on something really cool and new, you're going to have a lot of copycats real soon, because these VCs that are giving you money, there's other VCs that are going to give your competitors money too. So your competition tends to be really strong, because in Turkey, if you build like a unique model, the level of competition you're going to have is not going to be as fierce. So it's like span pluses and minuses.
Thank you. Etohum, is it really deal terms are bad in Turkey? What are the deal terms in BIC, for example?
Actually, do you mean bad for the entrepreneurs or for the
What is the
investors?
problem? I mean,
Yeah.
what is the problem over there with the entrepreneurs, with the investors?
Let me
Sure, I'll give you an example. Like, I'm not going to name names here. Like, but one of the you're familiar with this when this happened to us in Turkey. So like one of the kind of well-known firms kind of gave us a term sheet that was like, hey, we'll give you, and I'll actually say the terms, like $200,000 for 30% of your company, which is kind of giving you like a $500,000 valuation. It's kind of ridiculous. But we'll also control 51% of your company. So I'm like, so you're looking to hire a general manager for your own company. You're not really investing in my startup. And so that's basically wasn't a very unique experience. So the thing is, like, the investors here, one, have a lot of competition, so they cannot really get away with giving you terms like this.
I see.
But also, they're basically more experienced that, like, that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot, right? So if you kind of screw the entrepreneur like that guy is your jockey, he's like your horse, right? So he's not gonna really, excuse my language, he's not gonna really give a shit about the company if he's like lost control and like doesn't have enough of the company when it's successful. So a lot of the valuations and terms here are basically set up in such a way that, like, when the company is going through these challenges and it's growing, the CEO or the entrepreneur is going to stick around and persevere, right? So,
see what I mean. I mean, actually, I think the system is changing. So I'm doing this stuff for 2 years in Turkey. I was an entrepreneur in Turkey. I'm there for more than 10 years. Actually, I'm not that Turkish. I'm from Germany originally, but I'm now 13 years in Turkey, something like that. I started with an angel network. I was actually not fully happy with all the way they were handling business. It was just a developing ecosystem. Okay, now, let's say, then I set up my own angel network. We have now 40 people. Our term sheet is actually based on international standards. We have a good law office. For example, we are not taking more than 20-25% valuation. Maybe an issue, but we have strong minority rights, let's say, but that's it basically. I think it's international standards.
It's improving.
Actually, what I'm experiencing is that there is a separation in the market. So now we have a lot of nice government incentives. I mean, the Turkish market is interesting. There is something, I mean, we heard a lot of things today about the Turkish market, current situation, long-term situation. I mean, I'm still in Turkey. I believe in the macroeconomic conditions. Okay, political conditions are not favorable, and investors are very shy. So I would, if I'm an international investor, why should I put my money into Turkey if I can go to Brazil, South Africa, whatever, where it's more stable? But things will change again. I mean, this is always something which is long-term. You make the investments for 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. So it's long-term and the conditions are favorable. So now the government has done something both for angel investors, fund of funds, for even, let's say, initially we have the TÜBİTAK funds for research and development. So slowly there is something developing, and at the angel side, what we're experiencing, so people actually need to learn it. So I had let's say some guys joining us, and they said, okay, so you give more than 50% to the founders from the shares? That actually, yes, normally it's the case, they have control. We are just angel investors. We can guide them, we can give them mentorship, we can tell them how to do things, but in the end, we can even block some of our own, and I don't need the founders. I can run my own business. This separation takes place. Now we have this angel investment law. People are getting licensed. So I'm the first foreigner with an angel license, and actually it's very supportive. We got all support we need in our network. We have now 8 or 9 people. We are, I think, the third or fourth network with a license, and the people being, let's say, there, they understand better what is, let's say, what is angel investment. So we need to work on the ecosystem, but then the next challenge is, of course, okay, who will help us, not for an exit, but for the next round? Because we're just filling a gap in the beginning, but there's something coming after that. And if we cannot reinvest into new startups, then the problem is it's stalled. So the investment, the money is gone. We cannot easily raise another 100 million fund just for seed funds, and then it's stuck if nobody believes in the system any longer, and that is the big danger. So if we cannot proceed at the next stages, we see funds, international contacts, going to international markets, we may face a problem. That's actually why you are here. That is why we need to show Turkish startups to the world, because what I have seen in other countries, in Germany, they are not, yes, they need sometimes more guidance, they are less experienced, but to be frank, there's a little bit like a minority complex as well. I mean, they're good, they know what they are doing. The engineers are, to be frank, sometimes better, or very often they are better, but they need guidance, they need support. And what I have seen in smaller countries, yeah, that is not, it's not different. Just they are a little bit more shy and they're not exposed that much to the market. So I think there is something to be done, and it will go in the right direction.
I mean, connecting to both questions, do entrepreneurs know or aware of their rights or this kind of term sheet in, especially you are also working with the incubator at Sabancı University. Do you think that Turkish entrepreneurs are, did you aware of the, for example, asking the question, Selçuk, when you were founding your first startup in Turkey, İletken, these kind of rights or term sheets or this kind of issues?
So I did, but like the reason why so before I started my first company in Turkey, I did like a Fulbright fellowship in New York, and I had a lot of mentors in the area who were like entrepreneurs. Like, for example, I had a mentor, Frank Poor. He sold like a $300 million company. So like even when I was looking at those term sheets, I was actually kind of Skyping kind of serial entrepreneurs in New York who were like, hey, these terms and like this and that. And like that was a unique case that I had access to that. But I feel like we need like the support of like networks such as you guys, or like,
I mean, investors and entrepreneurs should both to be educated training and mentorship, I think.
I think the entrepreneurs in Turkey don't have training or practical experience in about investing. And so my experience is that there is a need for universities or these kind of organizations to talk about these things and what's fair, what's not, what's international standards, and what's negotiable, what's not. So these are kind of things we go through a few times in our incubation program. So the engineers, the good engineers, I think oftentimes I also see entrepreneurs and they're building businesses. It's also their first time dealing with money, or it's their first time selling something. So they're learning, they're fighting at many fronts at the same time. So I think so many of the speakers talked about the challenges in Turkey. I think in Turkey the additional challenges because the time to market, the time to financing is longer, and then there is some kinds of talent is missing. The entrepreneur has to be a double or super joker and fill in all the roles until they reach a certain size that they can start to delegate. So I think in Turkey, the entrepreneurs face the challenge of trying to fight the many. I think it's the same here, but more so in Turkey. And in terms of access to finance and learning to talk to investors, I think our entrepreneurs, Turkish entrepreneurs, in general, we have to up the game. I think there was a conference in Turkey. These guys from Israel, they run a bootcamp conference, and there was a European investor talking about, well, the American startups just pitch better and they have 20% higher valuations because they sell and market better. I think the Europeans probably are 20% above Turkey. So I think we just have to double our valuations by just learning to communicate, sell, convince better. I think this is a part of our how we're raised. We're shy, and we can't say no. I think when we just have to recondition, rewrite our software, and be confident and really, because you're getting money from investors, so confidence is, I mean, the body language, these are very important things, and I think the ecosystem, we need to build on this.
Actually, why the entrepreneurs here pitch better than European ones?
I feel like it's not like the entrepreneurs here pitch better. The ones who are successful are the ones that pitch better, so you hear about them. I mean, like, it's all about, I totally agree with you. So, like, a lot of startups, you would basically imagine it's about engineering and everything, and of course you have to have amazing technology and great people, but especially if you're like the kind of CEO or like the person who's basically kind of running the thing, a lot of what you have to do is sales. Right, so it's sales when you're raising money because you're kind of selling your story that this could be an amazing company. All right, when you're something that's really difficult at a startup is recruiting. Like, how can you build an amazing team and all that stuff? Because they're gonna be leaving their comfortable jobs and like kind of join the dream and all that stuff. So you're gonna kind of sell them on that stuff. You're gonna sell your customers before you have a product, right? So there's a saying that Don Valentine has. It's like famous venture capitalists where like money follows stories. So you got to be like a really good storyteller. Too.
Actually, Burak, if you don't mind, I need to say something about this valuation because I'm the investor. I'm having an investor perspective. I mean, especially last year, what we experienced is, let's say there are some startups, they have a nice idea. Okay, great. Then they start building a prototype which is actually not fully working, but let's say they get an initial support funding from an incubator, or maybe they have Tubitak funds or whatever. So in that moment, they have a valuation which is not outstanding. Okay, then they continue working 3 months on that, then they come, and suddenly we talk about $1 million amounts. I mean, it's the imagination of some entrepreneurs. I think there were some special...
What is wrong with it? I mean, why does this happen in Turkish market? Does entrepreneurs doesn't have a clue of what are they doing?
I mean, actually, yeah, the business model is not fully clear. I mean, in the end is, so if we invest as investors, let's say as angels, what we expect is that after a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years, there's a next round, and in the next round, actually with the risk, more than, let's say 50% are failing. That means the poor guys which are surviving, they have to actually compensate for these losses, which means our return expectations have to be high. The risk is pretty high. Okay, so then we slowly come to a stage, Hasan knows it much better, where you come to normal evaluations, which are based on multiples of EBITDA, for example. So in that case, if you calculate backwards, now a couple of years, then you have a normal valuation, which is not 7-digit, even not 7-digit in Turkish lira, but maybe 6-digit. But the ideas are a little bit different, and maybe partly it's because of her learning and hearing about valuations on international environment, which are not applicable for Turkey in the moment. The second part is there are some players in the Turkish market which have a little bit inflated the prices, but it was maybe a temporary event in the last year we have experienced. The other part is simply business experience and knowledge. I mean, the people are, for example, they have a great engineering background, but this finance stuff is something that's rather a little bit unknown area. And you know it, probably Hasan knows it as well. It's very hard even for, let's say, small, medium-sized companies in Turkey to get sold because their accounting is rubbish. They don't care that much for the figures. There's something which is not reliable, so international companies move in by making an asset deal and discounting the value by more than 30%. So what we do, for example, we say, okay, guys, work with us, please, and we provide you, concentrate on your business, but we do the reporting, we do the accounting, we do the legal services. We want to have it on benchmark international standards, otherwise there's no exit. And this gives you a bonus, and let's say an additional 30% premium on your valuation in the next round. This is something to be worked on. So this valuation issue is very dangerous in Turkey. In the moment, the prices in the startup scene are a little bit inflated, at least the imaginations.
I mean, as you have told, in the first quarter, there have been $5.2 billion of investment. It's a major economic figure, but I would like to ask about microeconomics. There haven't been so much